why is it that when um a man doesn't agree with the abortion, or why is that when a man wants the abortion but the woman doesn't, still the man is expected to pay child support?
That's hilarious. I was just about to ask you all that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't understand why a man wants the abortion but the woman doesn't. He still is expected to pay child support,
I
and
mean,
if he
why
doesn't,
is there protection and
It
then
took
you
two to
still
tango, bro.
decided? Yeah, why is there protection and other means all the game to make sure that you don't have a kid and you still ended up shooting the shot?
I'll get there in a moment.
Recording now. So basically, we're going to ask some questions with certain premises. And if you agree with the premise, you switch back on your camera to explain why you agree with it. And if you disagree, you still stay off your camera until those who agree have finally been able to give a good explanation as to why they do so, and they will bring you back on for you to share why you disagree. And we'll keep on going like that. We're gonna have a respectful conversation. Keep in mind, we are not here to change anyone's mind, but it's also good to hear different opinions from people of different walks of life. All right. So the first premise.
Um, so with that question, really, is for my answer is sort of a two-part answer. It's not fully culture. There's also, my culture is sort of mixed with religion. But definitely the culture is also a factor. Indeed, definitely my manhood is determined by culture. Coming from northern Nigeria, there are certain things that you're expected as a man to do or to portray or to have, that is sort of just what you see growing up being done by your elders, and you follow suit. um for example, I'll say being the man of the house, providing for the house. It's your responsibility as a man to be the sole provider of the house. Like, you don't rely on anybody else, and everyone look up to you to do that. Once again, you're the leader of the house, and you don't look elsewhere for your household to be led. You lead the house, and everything, like, you're sort of like the absolute say and power of the house. So that's expected. This is what we grow up seeing in our household, in the household of our, uncles or cousins or whatever. And so those kind of things you don't need being told. It's just you just grow up with it and you assimilate it, sort of. I there are other things also, but I'll say the more glaring ones are just what I just said. For the most part, another thing is, like, as a man, you are expected to sort of find your way
Yep.
and excel, right? And while I don't want to bring a woman into it, I just want to, just for comparison, as a woman from my culture, you are going to be somebody else's problem. As a man, you're not.
You are your own
You are
problem.
your own problem.
Okay.
So you have to live with that, and that makes you to grow up, to be strong, and to just strive to excel. There's no two ways about it. Strive to excel. Period. And I think that really, like, helps shape your mentality, and how you grow up and how you see life.
I mean, yeah, he said pretty much almost everything I wanted to say. Again, coming from a background where I look up to someone for sure, um, I saw what he was doing, and that is the same trait that I picked as a form of expectation. Yes, I know, like in our current society, there's a little bit of flexibility to it, but again, it's just part of you because it's so hard for you to eliminate from your mind, from yourself, in a sense where you saw it and then it's part of the culture. You learn it because that's what was transferred to you. So yes, again, as a man, you are expected. Expectation should be part of you to provide, protect, discipline, do all the things that my brother Ali said. So I mean, he said it all. He said it all, and I mean, to a certain point, I believe in it because I don't want a form of confusion with what the rest of the world is speaking against certain cultures and certain ways of life. It kind of, in a way, messes up with decision making and also just your life in general. So yes, there can be a flexibility of trying to adjust to certain ways of life. However, I still hold high esteem to my culture and how I was brought up. Yeah.
I think for me, growing up, it's interesting how I lived my life because I lived with different people, different places, but I've come to understand that I think I find my manhood more from religion than culture, or maybe we can put it, yeah. So from religion, as I mean, I'm a believer. I'm a believe in Christ Jesus and stuff, and my I feel like my way of life is more towards how I can be like Christ than like any other example. And so that's pretty much what I pick from. So if I see Christ in different people of different cultures or different backgrounds and stuff, I mean, I'm like, whoa, I can learn from this. So it's more from that than from culture point of view. Yeah, for me. So yeah, you guys can say yours.
Yeah. So for me to, yeah, from the question, I was assuming you're saying, straight up culture. And for me, it's just like Caleb. I believe that my belief in Christ has a major role in how I define myself as a man or how I see myself as a
Yeah,
man. Um, I mean, the Bible also talks about the man being, the head of the household and all of that. But then I believe when we talk about the Bible perspective, it also highlights a part of your role is to serve and to serve your family. And I feel like the religion brings that part to light for me more
yeah,
and kind of holds me accountable
to that.
to that standard. When it comes to serving your wife and being there for your wife and your kids and your children. So that's where I'll say that that definition of being a man, uh, it kind of differs from the culture part. I mean, the culture brings the part where it's like, as a man, you have to be the provider, you have to do protect, and you have to do all these things. But I feel like
Yeah,
the service part of it is really comes from the Bible, and I feel like that's a big definition for me as a man as well.
So I pretty much agree with what my two brothers said. I get my definition of what manhood is also from my belief in Jesus Christ. The Bible pretty much explains how you have to treat the people around you as as a man, how you have to treat your family, how you have to treat your wife. But then I started to think about the question again. When you talk about culture, are we actually talking about where we come from, or are we also talking about like where you grew up in as in the society? Because I feel like I get my definition of what it means to be a man actually from the Bible, like what you guys said. But then I started to think about the question again, and I thought about how society actually defines what it means to be a man. Because lately, a lot of the way we men have been moving is actually from the way society defines what it means to be a man. Even though we don't like to, even though we say, even though I'm someone who I don't really care what people think about me, or I don't really try to please people, I actually realize that a lot of the things that I do is because society has defined it that way, whether we like it or not. For example, when you go on a date as a man, it's expected that the man pays. And it doesn't matter whether you are a manly man or a man who is more feminine. A female always expects the man to pay. Why? Because you're a man. The society defines it that way. So I feel like, I get part of it from who I am as my belief in Jesus Christ. But then again, I feel like there is some cultural side or societal side which actually defines how I should act as a man, even though I don't want it to be that way, or even though I might not agree. Or let me say it this way, whether I agree or disagree, I feel like society would in some way still define what it means to be a man. Let me end it with that for now.
That's interesting that you
Yeah.
said that because I think listen to what you're saying. I kind of agree with you on some sense, but it also made it more clear to me why the Bible is that way for me because like it can only be one true standard. Like I try my best to not let like what society or where the environment I am is dictating. What is dictating be the way I live my life, and I think that's why I just wanted to add that like that's why for me I disagree with it more. I know that whatever is good is in the Word of God, of course, in the Bible. And then when I read the Bible, living that way, it just puts me in what's right in terms of how to be a man. So, like for example, I know Daniel said something about like man being the head. I see it more of as a description than a position. So it's like a job description. Like okay, you the head. What is the head supposed to do? The head supposed to yada yada. So it kind of just draws down from there. And of course, I'll probably see a lot of similarities in things that are being done around me, especially growing up in Africa and then also living a good part of our lives in outside Africa. It's just there's so many things that you see is like, wow, okay. So then which one would be the relative truth or relative like um standard for me? So yeah, I think I just wanted to point that out too.
Also wanted to I wanted to say that I feel like the it's so hard sometimes to fully separate what what's the definition of manhood is, um, or to fully separate what you believe what manhood is from like the culture and like let's say your beliefs, because sometimes they get so intertwined. And I believe that even in the Bible sometimes like the culture of what was going on kind of determined how things were done or how like some things are done. And even in our walk with God, like the culture determines. And for me, I believe so far as you're not like contradicting the word of God, you are going in the right direction. Like an example, like paying when you go. To me, I'm like, okay, when you go on a date, to me, I'm like, okay, how is that going to contradict the word of God? So to me, in that sense, like, is that really like going against, or does that mean like if I don't pay, does that mean like I'm not a man, or like I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. I'm
So
just trying
do
to
you pay though? Do
like
you pay though?
bring that.
Do you pay though?
Oh, of course I pay, but I always pay. I
Yeah,
do my
I'm
best.
just
If I
curious.
don't have money, I'll let you
yeah.
know
For me,
before we go. If I don't have money, I'll let you know before we go. And if you have to pay, you pay, because I'll not ask you. For me, I'll not ask you if I know I don't have the money to go, right? So
Of course.
but the funny thing, when you take them on dates and then they act like they're about to pay,
yeah, for me,
but they'll be taking forever to find their card,
I'll let you pay.
and then they're
If you
waiting for
ask
you to
that, I'll let
pay.
you pay
So,
that.
so to chip in with this dating, like first date thing, right? I believe that as a man, we are naturally pursuers, right? So normally you are the person that like goes, you see, and then it attracts, and then you push towards it, right? So as much as someone would disagree that, oh, um, why should I pay on the first date as a man? I mean, so far as you're trying to impress, some of the the basic, should I say, basic characteristics to prove that you can be above and beyond. And again, too, it's more of what the lady is also going to hear from your bodily expression, and at the same time the ones you talk about. So if you are paying during your first date, I mean, it's a stepping stone. So I disagree to a point where you expect the lady to pay. I mean, naturally, she's not. You went to her unless you tell me that the lady actually pursued you and be like, okay, let me take you on a date. But naturally, yes, stereotypically, I believe that a man has to pay on the date. I mean, so far as I'm pursuing you, I made the effort and I'm trying to convince you, the woman. So the first glance comes from you.
Just making sure. Wait. I want to say that I hope you guys didn't think that I said that the woman has to pay you.
That's what I
Hey,
get, bro.
hey,
I
if
get
it
that.
helps,
That's what you said.
if it helps,
That's
just so you
exactly
know,
what you said, bro.
when I first meet my wife,
That's not what I said. Hey, please.
hey,
That's exactly what
Daniel,
Please,
you
that's not
said,
what
Daniel,
I
bro.
said.
you gotta stand on your business, man. When I first meet my wife, I didn't pay. That's all I'm gonna say,
It's
man.
okay.
That's
We
on
support
period.
your opinion, brother. We support your
Hey, yeah,
opinion.
I didn't pay, man.
I mean, I've
That's
been
it.
on
That's
dates
what
where
I'm
I
saying.
didn't pay either. I'm just saying it's not
Oh
a
wow,
written
oh wow.
rule that
So
a
now
man
he's
Daniel,
has to
confessing
pay.
Daniel,
it.
Like
Now
if you
he's
defending
don't
his
have the
confessing
love.
it.
money and
Now
you
he's
like
Daniel,
confessing
you
it.
defending.
guys.
This is a very interesting question because he said it demonstrates maturity and something in with regards to was it um it doesn't impact my masculinity. I don't think crying in front of your children makes you less of a man or anything. I mean, that's my opinion on the whole. But I also don't think it demonstrates that you are matured or you're not matured or anything. I just think there is a way of presenting certain things that can look right in the eyes of everybody. Like for example, you can't go cry before your kid because like the cop gave you a ticket. That's that's not that doesn't make sense. Like that doesn't make sense. So I think I kind of agree, but then I'm starting to think just with some part of the statement. So I don't know, but I'll still stand on like I agree that it doesn't it doesn't really impact my masculinity of any sort. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, go
for
ahead.
me, okay. So for me, I believe it doesn't impact your maturity or your masculinity. Your masculinity, because I feel like being able to regulate your emotion and understand how you truly feel and expressing that emotion is very important as a man. And the problem is that in today's society, it has been deemed weak to cry or to express that emotion. And I don't want to just use the term cry because I feel like it's an expression of emotion, of how you feel. And it's obviously depends on the time and the reason why you're expressing that emotion. You know, you cannot go around just be crying every day or every time something little happens, then you're expressing. But if something serious happens, something difficult happens, how being able to, I believe, as a man, especially when you have sons, and being able to sit down and have a one-to-one conversation, and even if you have to cry, you express that to them. I feel like it's important to able help them also be able to regulate their emotions when they face difficult situations, because you cannot just say that, oh yeah, me crying shows that I'm weak, or me crying shows that I'm not mature, or I'm not a man. You end up bottling that feeling up, and then yeah, it's gonna, like we've talked about, you're gonna end up exploding at some point because you have not been able to express your emotions. You have not been able to express how you feel. And I feel like even if you're able to do that, you're even more matured or you're even more masculine, because for you to be able to sit down and cry in front of other people and then get up and go about your day, I feel like that takes more strength to do that versus keeping it inside you. Okay, then keeping it inside you and not showing how you truly feel about it. So yeah.
So, I mean, you guys have said it all, but I'll just add a few to it. Vulnerability to a certain point is very important because, as again, it depends on the situation, right? And it is okay to cry if the need be. And hiding it from your kids, you are indirectly teaching them to also hide certain things like this from themselves if they actually have to be vulnerable, right? So, Yes, I have a young daughter, and if the need be, maybe some years to come, she is a teenager, and I'm going through a hard time, and I feel like I have to let her know that okay, I am not feeling good. This is what she is actually going to process it in a way that oh, if my dad is crying, that means I'm not always going to be feeling okay, right? There are moments where I will be down, where it needs me to be like in a state where I pour out my emotions through tears. So I believe that being vulnerable to a certain point, again, to a certain point, it's not again, it's not anything that you need to like expose, right? But if the need be, you know that you've gone through all angles and looking at how tough it is, you don't know what to do to you. So I just feel like it is okay. It is okay for them to know that oh, today the daddy boss small, he did cry, like no things are not feeling well. You'll be surprised that they will give you emotional support as kids to say that it's okay, and then you'll be surprised they'll be checking up on you just to make sure that you're okay. So to a certain point, I believe that crying in front of your children shows maturity. It teaches them to.
I know
I
you go
disagree
first. I
with
went first the last time.
I disagree with the statement. Why? Because I feel like as a child, okay, let me start with this. So I don't have kids. I hope to have them soon, but I've seen videos where when, for example, a child falls down and feels pain, depending on how the parent reacts to it, the child might cry or not. So I believe that children are very moved by the way that the parent carries them. And I feel like when you cry as a provider of the family, as the man of the family, um, you, I think it's okay for men to cry. Let me start with that. But I feel like it depends in what kind of setting and where the man cries. I believe that when you cry in front of your children, and this is my own opinion, I believe that when you cry in front of your children, it how do I say this in a not too harsh or soft. No, no, I don't want to say
Your
you're weak.
weakness.
Yeah, just say he's weak.
Just say what it is, man.
Definitely, I
It's
Yeah,
want to
not like
say
that's
you're
what you're trying
looking
to
for a
say.
glorified
Just
show
way
your
to
say.
say
children
it.
that you are not, for that particular moment, you're not able or you're not capable of how do I say it, carrying um yeah, regulating your emotion. Yeah, sorry,
Regulating your
I
emotions.
speak Dutch in the day to day, so sometimes my English is a little bit wavy. But yeah, I feel like as a provider of the family, you're supposed to show that you're able to carry the family in whatever situation it might be. And I personally, I only think it's okay for men to cry in three situations, and in public, and that's one, for a very traumatic event, maybe a death; two, of a loved one; or three, of course, when you're worshiping God, or you're moved by the Holy Spirit or whatsoever. Because I feel that when you cry, you show some type of vulnerability, and especially when you do that in front of your children, they might think, as I said, you're not capable of carrying the situation in that moment. But then again, it also depends on how mature are your children at that point. Because if I cry in front of my 4-year-old daughter, hypothetically
Yeah,
speaking, because I
that's
don't
very
have
true.
one yet. I mean, children cry over literally everything. So even when you take away a pencil from them, they might start to cry. So they might think that crying in every situation is okay. Meanwhile,
Okay.
for some situations, crying is not okay. Yeah.
Um, I my answer is pretty short actually. So crying. First of all, we talk about showing emotions, and then we talk about the question. Carries maturity. So I feel like part of maturity is also knowing how to control your emotions.
Mm.
And especially, I believe, as a man? And this question leads, or kind of like carries from the previous question we had as to a man, and how you are the leader. You're supposed to be looked upon as the guide in the household. I think, and I'm not saying a man should not cry, but I feel like you shouldn't cry, or my opinion is you shouldn't cry in front of your children. There are people who are there that you can show emotions in front of. For example, your spouse. That is somebody who is equal to you and is there for that reason. Um, and maybe your parents and stuff like that. But I feel like your children, no, I disagree. I don't see myself, or I don't want to see myself crying in front of my children, because I'm supposed to be the person to make them feel it's okay. And let's say, even if it's in a situation of a tragic event, um, I'm supposed to be the one holding it together, not joining them in sort of crying and just losing it in terms of emotion. And that's one of the reasons why I want them to feel it's okay for them to come to me to calm down, or to feel it's okay. If I'm crying, they're crying, then who is, you could say we're consoling each other the same, but no. Um, as a child, as a son, I want to, when things are not going well, to go cry to my father, and he has bright eyes, he's not shedding tears, telling me it's okay, it's gonna be okay. And that makes me feel comfortable that I am protected, some sort of way, emotionally and mentally and all of that. And I think that's my role as a man, and that's all. Yeah.
So this from what I took from just what you said, you defining how I understood. You're defining a stereotypical manhood, like where you expected at all times, right? And yes, in the beginning when we started, I actually agreed to a certain point of, like, how, um I've forgotten the title, but however, um I think to a certain point, especially when the kids are grown, where they know their whereabouts, their teens. Now, with all these technologies, you don't have to teach your kids certain things in life, right? And I believe that to a certain point, if the need be that you have to be vulnerable, because you are showing them that it is okay to be honest about your emotions. The fact that you're a father figure and they hold you to, like, the highest peak doesn't mean that there are some days you wouldn't be down. And it shouldn't be like a continuous thing, but I'm sure there's going to be one moment where you will need that support. Regardless of you having a spouse, you need that support from your kids, because your kids are from you. And if they are grown enough to understand how life works to a certain point, I believe that you should be able to be vulnerable when the need be. Yeah.
I also wanted to add that, yeah, like when I'm saying it's okay to cry in front of your children, doesn't mean that like every single thing you're crying about, like it's you're talking about serious situations. Something has you downbeat, and then like you're expressing
Can you
that
give an example?
emotion. So it's to me it's important to be able to be show how you truly feel with your kids. There's going to be a time, it's not guaranteed, but then there's probably going to be a time where it's like you have to shed a tear. Like it's not like you have to, but then you're at a point where like that's all you can do. And I feel like you trying to suppress, as a man, trying to suppress that and just trying to be robust and trying to be like all macho and stuff, like you're not being genuine with your kids, or you're not seeing truly how you feel, right? Because you're suppressing how you feel so that you can be a man. You can be the head of the household. And I believe that you crying doesn't mean that you cannot be the head. You crying doesn't mean that you cannot lead. You crying doesn't mean that you cannot provide. You crying doesn't mean that you cannot do any of the things that you do as a man. So that's why I believe that it doesn't take away from your masculinity. It doesn't take away from your role as the head of the family. It doesn't take away your role as the leader of your kids or someone that they look up to. Um, as I repeat, I repeat that it depends on the situation and why you're crying. Yeah. So yeah.
GK
Uh,
first.
all right. I really wish I didn't have to answer this question in public, but yeah, I believe that it is, in the sense that, like we were talking about, as a man, you're being the head of the household, and you're the leader of the family, you're the provider of the family. And like I was saying in my definition of being a man, that it comes with a lot of sacrifice, it comes with service, it comes with it comes with sacrifice and service, and that alone, that means that sometimes you're gonna suppress what you want, what you truly want, what you truly desire, for the greater good of the family, and for the greater good of the people around you. So that's why I think it's harder to be a man, because sometimes you have to put the needs of the people around you first before your needs. And sometimes it's like all the tiring and the suffering that you're going through is because you want your family to have something good, not necessarily for yourself. So to me, that's why I believe that it is. I mean, like, being a woman is difficult. Please, a woman, if you hear this, don't come and kill me. Being a woman is difficult. To have kids is difficult. To raise kids is difficult. To do all those things is difficult. But I feel like when it comes to that, to truly be a good man, to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be a good man, is very difficult, because it comes with a lot of service, it comes with a lot of sacrifice, it comes with a lot of dying to yourself, for the greater good of the other people around you. So that's why I believe that it is. I mean, and not that women don't also have to sacrifice some things here and there, but I believe that men have to do more.
I'll put this, the reason why and the differences are not that much, really. We all have, difficulty in our own ways. Obviously, as a man, you don't go through, you know um the birth, and stuff like that. So definitely. But I think, when we, for example, why is it that, you know when you're in the society, they say woman first? Or if you're, let's say, you're in a train and there are no more seats, and the woman is standing, as a man, is a gentleman, like behavior to get up and let the female sit. And I'm not saying those things make your life harder, but those things are saying that you sacrifice, right? It's almost innate and expected of the man to be sacrificing for the betterment of, the family, and obviously the spouse and the female. And it's like, so those kind of things make it pretty, convincing that as a man, you kind of have it a little bit more, because of the expectations. You're not anyone's problem, you're your problem. While as a female, you know there's always a companionship with you to help you out. And that's just my opinion. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, just my opinion. And it's also based on upbringing. So I'm not
What you said, I'm saying the same thing.
just my opinion. um
Okay, so for me, before I start off, let me say, I don't want to downplay anyone's struggles or anyone's pains or whatever. Let me say that upfront before people start coming for me. But
Yes,
my
please.
experience simply is, a man is only valued for the things that he can provide and the person that he is. Even in African culture, you hear it a lot. They compare you a lot with other people. They compare you a lot with other men. Like, look at what he has achieved. Look at what she's doing. Look at what he's doing. And even in school, when the men, when they wouldn't get as good as great as the females, the teachers would be like, how come all the girls are getting the good grades and the guys are not? So there is a certain expectation for you as a man, and especially in this society, being the provider, you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to sacrifice a lot, and if you don't, if you don't come up to what societal standards of what it means to be a man, you actually kind of get, I don't want to say cancelled, but you kind of get written off. So I feel like a lot of the men's struggles are really downplayed, and that's a reason why a lot of men don't really want to show their emotions, in public, because then there's gonna be a certain stigma or certain, how do you call it, view of that kind of man. So in that sense, I believe that men do struggle, but they do struggle in silence. And I feel like struggling in silence is even more deadlier, even more difficult than doing it publicly. Publicly. So in that sense, I feel like men struggle more than women.
Um, I disagree in a sense that I don't think I can compare each other's difficulties or challenges that we face as genders, in respect of how you all believe. Irrespective of how we all believe that like there are certain sacrifices and expectations as a man in our society, women also go through their own things. For example, carrying babies for 9 months, not knowing what may happen during the delivery. They can die. They can have a whole lot of health issues. When it comes to jobs, they don't easily get it. I mean, I know in America, equality is pretty like clear out there, but when you go to the outside world, even in Africa, like it's not that easy for a woman to like even secure a job. Like they have to go through a whole lot of shenanigans just to be a help desk. So imagine trying to climb the ladder. So putting these points out, I feel like everyone has their own unique difficulties representing the gender, like male versus female. I don't think there is, again, if you are talking from a cultural perspective, yes, a man is expected to do blah, blah, blah. However, that same thing applies to women because if you are going to get married, you have to have kids. If you're not having kids, they're going to start questioning you why you're not having kids if it's not popping up. Like it's just a lot. And again, I just disagree that I disagree to a point where a man has more difficult life to a woman.
It's interesting that you say that. I believe it can never be compared and should never be compared in terms of difficulty or anything. The reason why I say that is that I've come to understand that a good woman makes a man's everything, make being a man so easy.
Yeah.
And a good man makes a good woman being a woman so easy. And it's just unfortunate that depending on what you get, all of a sudden you start to think mine is harder and yours is easier. I think that's
Hmm.
what has become the issue. And so we normally speak of it that way. So I disagree that yes, this is very. It kind of seems clear because I lived with a lot of sisters, right? And their bodies seems to be against them, like so many things biologically, the clock, a whole lot of
Yeah.
things going on with them. That's like women. And sometimes I looked at when I was young, I used to always laugh at them that I'm grateful to be a man. But I also being a man too, I also know what is
It's not a joke.
what is destined for being a man. And
Yeah.
none of it, like it's just two separate things that I really can't seem to like bridge it to even compare it.
Yeah.
So for me it's a harder thing to say, but I think that instead of we looking at it from that perspective, I think let's look at it from how helpful we both are to each other.
Each other. Yeah.
like we were talking about like going out to pay. I've never really had an experience where I'm struggling, in terms of finance, and then I still have to squeeze money out of my pocket to do something. I've never had that because every time, by the time I'm already going stepping outside with you, I'm already telling you that, hey, this is my situation. And if I believe if you're a good woman, you would understand me and work with me, or
Yeah.
at least hold me up, and I'll be loyal to you. So it's like give and take. And the other way around, when I have to, forget about it. You don't even have to ask. I'm spreading. I'm like showering you with it. So that has been my experience. So it's very difficult for me to speak otherwise.
I just want to say that the
I
married
want to
man,
ask.
you see the married men, because they know where they're going to sleep tonight.
I was just gonna say this.
Oh
I was
no,
just
no,
gonna
no,
say
no.
this.
Hey,
The
You
married
see the
man.
married man.
My wife is
Nanekwa
not even around.
is
So
not here.
my wife
No,
is not even
Nanekwa is not
around.
here. She's not here with me.
Eh?
She's
Oh,
not
but
even
but
around.
the,
But she's gonna watch it.
the what?
She's gonna watch
Oh
it.
no, 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 no. I'm
Because
being very
oh,
transparent.
Yeah,
No,
hey,
no,
hey,
no, 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 no.
hey, 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 hey,
No.
hey. It's okay, it's
I mean,
okay.
I mean,
Darren, say
to be
what you
fair,
want to
Yeah,
say.
to be fair, right?
hey.
Let Darren talk. Let Darren talk because the case.
To be fair, right?
Daniel,
Just like
Daniel, you made a very good statement.
20
It's a
seconds,
very good
right?
statement. As
No,
soon as we all turned on
to
our
be
cameras,
fair,
I was like, look, it's a married man that didn't tell me.
their cameras
wait,
are.
hear me out,
Their
right?
cameras
To
was
be
off.
fair,
It's the married man.
to be fair, I may have
Maybe
the mentality. I may have the mentality to, yes, a man being like, the expectation, the difficulties, but being entangled, going through marriage, having to deal with all of that, you cannot compare. As my brother Demore said, it takes both of you to be able to. That's where you see your strength and your weaknesses. But I don't think I can boldly say that a man goes through a whole lot or like his life is more difficult than a woman because it's separate. This is not about the fact that I have my
we'll
wife
understand
here.
when we get married. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Demore, I wanted to ask you a question because you
Yeah,
made a
yeah,
statement.
yeah.
You made a statement that being a good man makes being a good woman easier and vice versa, right?
Mhm.
But then, in your opinion, what is a good man? Because, and actually, this is a genuine question because I'm actually trying to learn because I've how do I say this? Let me say I've experienced quite some females, Ghanaians, those who grew up in Europe, those who grew up in wherever,
The
and
dead.
I'm still trying to understand what is a good man because you can carry the moon on your hands and bring it to her, and still for some reason she will still
So we can
she will still
understand women.
act
That one day.
in certain ways that I'm like, what else do you want? Like you can give her the world and still she wouldn't be
Of course,
appreciative of it.
of
So
course.
what is a good man?
No, so I like to think of it. If I'm being honest, it took me getting married to learn a lot of these things. So maybe
Yeah.
that's why my opinion is different, as the case say.
Yeah.
But the truth is that for me, the first thing that I can tell you is being like Christ. That's literally the first I can tell you is that essentially you give everything to not expect anything in return. Bible says, like, I'm a firm believer that Bible talks about this, that a man is the head of the home, right? He's the head of the house. And then Bible says that you should love your wife as Christ loved the church, which means is that for me, it means loving my wife means that I have to, the way Christ loved me, Christ sacrificed.
Wait, I know you said the time is out, but I want to say something.
Yeah, go
Right?
ahead.
This is exactly why I said being a man is hard. You saying that you want to love someone like Christ loved the church.
Mhm.
You know how hard that is. Like,
No,
you
no,
understand what I'm saying?
I'm not.
Like,
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
especially
it's not
when
hard.
we are of this
I'm not saying
flesh
it's
that
not
we
hard.
are,
I'm not saying it's not hard.
you know.
I just think that it's hard. But then too, the woman's also is also very hard in its
Of
because the
course
same
it
way
More
he's
is.
talking
unique
about
way.
he's
Yeah.
talking about Christ doing hard. The same way any believer that is struggling will tell you that Charlie being a believer too is hard because it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, catching out to that level is also hard. So essentially it's like being like Christ. So knowing how to cycle. And I've come to learn one thing, that it's different to give something to somebody and somebody will never be appreciative of it.
Yep.
However, if you know the right thing to give to the person ends up appreciating it. Like for me, for example, I was like, I was busy, I would be busy doing everything for you. You know, I'll make sure I'll do all the things that'll make your life easy. And then it could be that your woman just wants words of encouragement, you know, wants to be like, oh, hey, it's okay, or give her a hug and stuff. So I'm doing all these things and I'm thinking I'm sacrificing myself. But in hindsight, those are good. It doesn't mean stop them. It's just that they want you to give a certain different version. You know, it was like, okay, I'm
You can have it all. Again, you
yeah,
can have it all.
like nah.
But,
So it's
so
just learning what to really give. I don't know.
indeed,
We can
indeed,
talk more
20
about
seconds,
this
20
then. We
seconds,
can. I
20
think I
seconds.
think
And
this is a good
also,
thing
and
to
also,
talk offline.
and yeah, that was a good question, Darren, because sometimes it also depends on the woman. Sometimes
It
the
depends
woman
on the
is just
woman.
not ready
Yep,
to
Yeah,
yep.
yeah,
be
yeah.
that to receive
Some of them
that
don't
those
understand what
things.
love means. That's all. They think it's
Exactly.
all
So
about emotions and oh my
yeah.
God, you're making me feel the world. But there's
Mhm.
more of intentionality than just like the
Yeah,
intimate and the
intimacy.
emotional
Exactly.
Yeah,
capacity they
yeah,
want to receive from you.
yeah,
Most people just want to take, 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 take. But
yeah,
they don't understand what love truly means. They think it's just all about the feelings and emotions. So yeah, maybe you'll be doing everything, but
they
they
will never
wouldn't
appreciate it.
exactly until you find.
I think
No,
they
it's
are
not
dumb or
necessarily
something,
about
but it's just they will
compatibility.
never. People will never see
Yeah,
it
it's not even about
until it's
compatibility.
the right
It's about make the lady being mature. Like there are
yeah,
some people they've gone through a lot to understand what love truly means.
yeah.
So if they don't understand love, yes, they'll depend on just the emotional and the
Then,
feelings part of it.
if it helps, let me put it into perspective. So a man told me a story like a kid was asked, "Do you want a bag to take to school?" That mind you, he has no bag, so he holds his book. He's like, "Do you want these things versus candy? Which one would you want?" The kid said candy. Everybody, of course, every adult sitting there being like, "Are you dumb?" Like that's how some people are. Some people just be like, I kind of want candy. I don't mind. I'll hold my books, knowing very well that 5 years later or a year, the next month, they're gonna be struggling when it's raining with these same books. So it's just some people are just like that. Naturally, they just
Mhm.
you can't. It's like you can't phantom. You if you try to understand, it will never work. And that's how
Yeah,
some
because
people are.
I just don't understand. Like seriously, I'm gonna give you an example of something I experienced literally last week. So sure. So I met this girl 2 months ago, and she is from.
Yeah, oh, well.
Okay, let me not go into details before one
Yeah,
day she
yeah,
she
yeah.
she watches this podcast.
Mhm,
So this lady is new in the country. Yeah, she comes from a different European country and understood the struggles of traveling to a different country and not knowing anyone's.
mhm,
And even in the like kind of talking phase, I could see that men treated her some type of way. So what did I decide to do? I decided that I will treat her how she's supposed to be treated in a good way, and not only that, I will teach her from the Bible, so biblical standards. So we started this Bible plan. I introduced her to Jesus Christ. I took her along to church. I will pick her up, to go and do stuff, to go and have dinner. Uh, the normal things that you usually do as a guy. Only for,
Did you pay on the first day?
of course, I did.
Exactly.
I paid. I mean, for me personally, I've never had a woman pay for me. Not even that they even, asked. But anyways, I paid for the first date. I mean, in my opinion, I would say I treated her well. And not only for the fact that I would take her out to do stuff, but I would actually take my time out of my day to actually, so I would make like an appointment with her that we'll meet online, and I would actually be teaching her um principles from the Bible so she could also understand, you know. And we did it for a few weeks, months, and then she started acting weird. You know what the females usually do? They start replying late, not replying at all. And this was someone who said that she liked me. And I was kind of like confused because her actions were contrary to how she was acting.
Maybe the route you took wasn't the best.
But then I'm trying to figure out which route was that?
I mean, you started with
I
the
want to say
Bible. Me,
something.
I don't know. Maybe they are not the Bible type. You're trying to impose something on her, which is not
Yeah.
really her.
No, no,
So
no.
yeah,
It wasn't posing because she was actually the one who was asking me.
this is one thing I also learned, right?
Hmm.
A lady expressing concerns and feelings to you, you automatically going to feed off from that to make her feel special. Once she's okay with the things you're giving to her, whereas it's not being your true self as a man, what you provide, and then your true colors or characters are showing, not in a bad way or a good way, but however your character is showing, they will decide to see if this thing works with them or not. So I believe that whatever, initiated the conversation was what she was going through. You heard it subconsciously. You fed on that to provide for her, and now she's fulfilled on that part. So what else do you have on the table to give to her?
So,
Yo,
so,
hearing you say this is the funniest thing I've ever heard.
so, so wait. I want to say one thing, right? I want to say one thing. What, like, we should try not to judge our judge ourselves or our character based on how someone responds to us.
Period.
Because you're doing something right, or you believe that you're doing something right, you're doing everything, like you said, you were doing everything that you needed to do, and this person responds a certain way, doesn't say anything about you, but speaks more about the person.
More about the
So
person, yeah.
yeah, so Darren, like, don't let that bother you, that whether I'm not being a good man or I'm not being. If you know that you're being a good man, you know, like before you and God, that you're doing everything that you need to do.
Be happy
How the
it
person
actually
responds
flees.
to it is not your it's not your problem. If the person takes it for granted and that's what she wants to do, and doesn't reciprocate in the right way, that's not your problem. You did what you needed to do, and then
Can I start? I'll speak. I think it's ruining the dynamics in Africa. Growing up in Africa and the type of environment that I grew up in, like I said, I feel like everybody was doing what they're capable of and what they can to make things work. African system is very different from Western systems. It's so different that if you take certain ideologies from Western world and put it into Africa, it just creates a huge chaos and a huge mess. And that is what I think we're experiencing, because a lot of people, I don't think feminism means in anything different. I know people think that America has equality and all of these things on a high pedestal, but if you look at the history of Ghana, Ghana, for example, has a huge number of women in roles way before this 21st century quote unquote feminism and all these things started coming out. Huge women in business, women in doing so many big things, versus probably what actually is being confirmed that is more than for America compared in comparison. So we have these things. However, it's now being proclaimed that okay, well, a woman shouldn't be the one cooking, a woman shouldn't be the one doing this, a woman shouldn't be the one doing that, and then all of these things are creating chaos in Africa, in my opinion, and then it's putting a lot of families in shambles. However, we see the mess it has created in most of these Western countries. The family system is not there anymore, and because family systems are terrible now, life is just becoming so terrible. Like kids are coming out even worse than they should. Things are just it's like a whole huge mess going on in the name of quote unquote feminism. So I think what it stands for has been taken and is being branded negatively and being preached to Africans. And Africans, when we pick up on it, we pick the wrong direction. So yeah, and let me add this. Another way of thinking of it is that I hate to say this, but it's like the way the way I think of it like slavery. We're taking our gold, giving it to people, giving it to the Western world, and then we receiving salt and mirror back. But just so you know, we had gold. If we keep on with our gold will be worth more than salt and mirror. So yeah, that was just a slavery joke that I wanted to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with what he said. But I want to say this also. It's an understanding problem. So what happens in Western world, there's a lack of understanding how to execute it in Africa, especially from the ladies there, especially the young ladies, because I think the mothers and all of that, they grew up differently, so they already have their piece. They already know how to deal with these things, but especially the young generation. I'll give you an example. If indeed part of feminism is having equality, and let's say working and doing some certain kind of things and having your own say in the table, having your own thing. You have young women in Africa, young girls right now, where they go online on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and they shout out feminism and all of that. I want equality and all of that. But then what are you doing? What are you doing on your own part? Here in America or the Western world, you have same age group of women who are in the workforce, right? And they're striving and they're doing what it takes, right? And yes, they can sit down and say, shout out equality and all of that because they're doing their own part. But when you go back, and I'll tell you, and it's not the woman's fault, it's not the young woman's fault in Africa, it's the fact that our system is not there to provide them with the platform for the majority of part, right? Not entirely, but for the majority of part, it's not there. So you can't bring something in and adopt it when the system is not there to support it. And I think that's the more bigger issue. We don't have the system to support it.
So I have a different I guess concept to what you just explained, right? I'm looking at it from what um we as children saw what our mothers went through in terms of being extremely submissive to, like, your husbands and, like, the head of the house, where sometimes it goes to a point of affecting their emotions and their way of life. Yes, woman empowerment is awesome, but this is where I feel like most of our African sisters have taken the role of masculinity, right? Where they can't even handle it when it comes to the worst situations, right? So they are preaching about woman empowerment, equal rights. I always hear this thing: you can't tell me what to do. You don't have my right. You don't have right to do this. You don't have right to do this. But however, you as a woman, you don't have the emotional capacity to hold certain things, even though you are claiming to be hum. So yes, it is ruining it a lot because, as you said, um in the Western world, the structure, like, they are doing, like, women are actually putting in the effort to be recognized for the great things they are doing, versus some of our African sisters back home who are not. They want that empowerment, however, they are not even putting in the effort to do it.
I come from the standpoint where it's like, uh, now it's just like, because of the equality or feminism thing, sometimes it just gets to a point where it's like now, uh, women are more like, it's very hard for you to, especially as a man, to lead,
Yeah.
because they also want to lead, and it becomes like a power struggle. So I just think that, in that sense, that's where I'm coming from. I've not really been in that workforce and really know how it's going there, but then that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
No,
uh, I'll have maybe 20 seconds to that, right? No, so 20 seconds to this, right? Some as you made mention of like they want to leave, right? I understand that sometimes we as men, especially in a relationship or like a marriage setting, where some decisions that you take are really wrong or like no, it's not the best that could like help benefit the family, and sometimes they could push out suggestions because of respect, just to make sure that you're able to like listen and actually execute. However, sometimes it gets to a point where they feel like you're not doing things that could help the family, and then they just push in, and that's where um the power struggle comes in, because you are doing things that are not positively impacting like the growth of the family and like everyone around. So yeah, I mean there's a good side to it and a bad side to it as well.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, for me,
I mean,
for me personally.
obviously, okay. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I wanted to say for me personally, I feel like the whole, like when you talk about feminism, I don't really understand like what is being meant, because I feel like the whole agenda of what feminism is has changed in this day and age, and I don't know what kind of agenda like they are trying to push at the moment. So for me, looking at feminism, because when you look back in the days, feminism was about um women having the right to vote and these kind of things. But at the moment, I don't know what kind of agenda they're trying to push. And actually, I don't really agree with this present day and age feminism that we're talking about. So I feel like it's a virus and should be far away from.
Virus fine.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
COVID 2025.
They need vaccination. Vaccination.
Right? Honestly, if there's a form of antidote to clear away that kind of character and attitude, I think I'll vote yes for it.
Yeah, because bro, I really don't understand what agenda it is they're trying to push, because I feel like in this present day and age, females take things which work for them. Because I'll hear people
Yes.
say that they want feminism, but then when it's time to go on dates and stuff like that, they still expect the man to pay. So I'm like, I feel like they're taking what works for them, and the one which doesn't work for them, they throw it us to the men to deal with it. So I
Yeah.
Selective
don't really
feminism.
understand.
Yes. Again, you
I
pursue,
don't
right?
think. I don't
So
think.
if you
I don't
make the
think that's. I don't
initiative,
think
you
that's
have to
right.
pay.
I don't think
Unless
that's
the
right.
lady offers to be like, okay, let me pay.
I
This is
don't
not
think
where
that's
she's
right.
pretending to pay,
See,
right? If she offers
I
to
feel like
pay,
that's why it makes ladies go into marriage, and then later on men will say I'm suffering, but the lady doesn't even provide like help with the money they make and stuff, because we've been branded as I got it, like I should be the one taking charge and
yeah,
blah blah
yeah,
blah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like having an understanding. That's why maybe my experiences has been different. Like if I don't have money and my friends we go out, like they take care of me. Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, whether I ask them or they ask me or whatsoever, my mind is that we all are like let's be real, we all are human beings. Things happen. Sometimes you may be working somewhere. Sometimes you may not be making the money that everybody thinks you're making. So it's okay for us to admit that, hey, I don't have enough. What can you do to help me here?
In this
And
modern
a good
society,
yeah,
there, I
a
don't
good
think the
woman,
woman
a
wants to
good
hear
woman
that.
You,
needs to understand that
you have to
okay,
find the right woman,
that's
man.
why it's a matter of the right
What
one.
what is define right woman in
Yes,
this
Because
current
any
world?
woman that will support you knows what you are saying
I
is the
have
right one.
I have
Let me put it
Yes.
on the negative. Let me put it on the negative side. There will be men that don't have it. They know, but because of their eyes, what they are seeing at all costs, they have to. They have to convince.
Hey, let me
So
let me
how
say
about that?
this. Let me say this. Let me say this. So I was talking to a coworker. We're talking about this whole payment thing when you go on a date, and he said there's something he does, and that he uses that as sort of like a criteria to like understand the female, the
Okay.
mentality of the female. So he says when he goes on a date, even though he has it, he will say like when it's time to pay, he'll take the bill and he will look at the lady and say, I got the bill. You got the tip. So
Oh,
he
okay.
says, if the female kind of says no or rebuttals about it or gets all angry, like kind of thing, then he
It could
knows
be a
this is
red flag. Oh.
yeah, this is
It's not
somebody
cut her
who's
off. Cut her off, bro.
Don't
yeah,
worry.
right, yeah,
She will cut you off. She
Cut
will
her
cut
off.
you off.
and it's
She
like
will cut you off.
yeah, and he's like
You'll be surprised that the lady can pay the tip, but that will be the last day.
yeah,
So
It doesn't matter. Then again, let her go.
Then you know, let her
Yeah,
go.
let
yeah.
her
So
go.
Bye bye. Oh, uli nyame nko.
Okay, can I go? So first of all, abortion, right? I go with like a more religious perspective about that. And it's not like abortion is totally not, welcomed.
Not
Abortion is welcomed in circumstances that need be. For example, abortion is allowed when it's deemed that the child, will actually be of harm to the mother if it's born. So that's like an unacceptable reason for abortion. And also, another reason is, for example, when in terms of rape, it is also acceptable. Um, so conditions like that. Um, but at the same time, abortion, I believe, um, is the decision of the lady, of the woman, because certainly it's her body, and certainly there's you have to work together with the other person involved, because the woman doesn't get pregnant just on her own. So certainly the man also has to be involved in the situation. But I think yes, the woman has a greater say about the decision in abortion because once again it's her body. Yes.
all right. So aside what you said, again, um, most of our sisters in like the Black American community, they normally use pregnancy to hook away men just in notion to stay with them, right? So with this being said, it may not make sense. However, if they're able to make decisions to corner a man just because they impregnated them, I feel like if their mindset tells them like no, they have to have an abortion. Aside all the valid um reasons you gave to why people have abortion, I'm looking at this from like a wrong path, a negative path. You did the do, and then it didn't happen as
you
expected.
didn't do
So
the do.
you did the do and you didn't do the do, and then something came up with it, right? So with that, with the two of you, regardless of the situation, um the final say comes from the woman, because again, as you said, it's her body. If she's not ready, especially if she's not mentally ready, they'll definitely gonna take the final say. Yes, a man can have their own manipulation skills to like influence the woman so that they can make it faster, but again, from that standpoint, the woman has the final say. So I think that's what I am thinking about right now.
This question is such a,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very dicey.
it's
It's
such
very, very
an
it's,
dicey.
interesting question because
I had to
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I
yeah,
had to think like four times.
yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
Darren is off.
Yeah, looks like Darwin
No.
doesn't agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man. Yeah.
Philip, take us away.
No, first of all,
You know,
I genuinely agree with Ali on this about like when it comes to abortion. That's I have only two conditions that okay. That's outside of that. I don't think abortion. First of all, I'm not a big fan of it at all, and I will boldly say I'm not a big fan of it at all. that it should be something that we should sit down and applaud and all those stuff. However, I just feel like some way somehow too, the quote unquote carrying of a baby is in a woman's womb, and if anything, she should be the person given the mandate to spearhead the decision of how she wants to progress with the baby. So whether, and I'm not speaking of it, and I want to refrain from speaking of it in terms of abortion. So I'll speak of it in terms of a choice being made towards like the process of delivering the baby. So whether it's like, let me say she wants to get a C-section, she want to get whatsoever, like it's up to her to determine all of these things. And I just think a man should just do most to support her. It's very unfortunate that in my years, my short years of experience in this world, I've come to understand that iniquity will continue to abound, evil is going to continue to abound, bad things is going to continue to happen.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, and unfortunately, we shouldn't look at the bad things and keep applauding certain decisions to, for that's what makes life beautiful, is that we see all the evil and we still able to produce some goodness out of it, or come out with something good. So I speak of it in terms of like what Nana Book said, people using pregnancy to trap people.
yeah.
I know somebody that came out of a well, just like pretty similar, like the mom tried to use that, blah blah blah, and today this person is one of the people that I'm always grateful to have in my life, because like the person is an amazing person, and I know they're gonna do great. So such a person kind of came out of trapping, and was allowed to push on with it, and ended up becoming such a beautiful soul to everybody around us. So that's an example for us to put in perspective. So, yeah, so I think the rest people can decide with their own decisions.
So one more thing I'll add to that, right? So sometimes too, I know in a relationship, it's all about choice and decisions, right? There are situations whereby a woman will meet a man, like be in a relationship. Yes, they will love them to a point, but sometimes when there is lack of trust and a communication issue and emotional support to a certain point, they look at that to make decisions. And we all know that women are very observant and they make decisions emotionally before they put it out there. So sometimes they can foresee that, nah, this man cannot, like, be a great help to me. Maybe the man can understand words like, oh, we can have a baby and all of that, but again, the woman has a greater influence in making decisions for herself when it comes to such situations. So looking at those factors I gave, like if she's not um receiving emotional support, she like, yeah, she's receiving love. I mean, sometimes they just think of just the feeling. However, there are other factors that, like, some men needs to consider, and if they are not getting that from them, when pregnancies like that happen, they take a forceful decisions to abort the baby, because they know that they are not receiving such stuff, which they know that at the long run, if they end up having it, is going to bring them a whole series of problems, because the man wasn't even ready to support him when he got pregnant. How much more taking care of the baby? So I'm looking at it from on that side, and this is where some of our sisters have trapped men and end up being single mothers and hating men because, like, they weren't willing to support them. Initially, they told you that they can't support you based on their actions. So there are some forceful decisions some women take because they know that in the long term it's not going to help them, or they are not with the right person.
No, is obviously it's a woman that's carrying the baby that's doing all of that. So you can't. It's very hard to be like, as a man, to come and walk in and be like, yeah, what I say or what I decide goes. But that being said, the abortion decision is a decision that should not be taken lightly. It's a very big decision, and like Ali was saying, for me, it's like you have to understand that sometimes there's a consequence for our actions. So if you go and do something that's gonna bring a baby, don't just try to take the easy way out. But then also, If it's going to put the mom's life at risk, then that's when it's okay. You should consider that, because someone shouldn't lose their life just because, yeah.
Yes. First of all, I want to go off with
I really
my
want to hear this one.
um um yeah, abortion is a topic which I've debated for a very, very long time now, and I don't agree at all with abortion. Why? First, I want to start off with this statement. Why is it that when um a man doesn't agree with the abortion, or why is that when a man wants the abortion but the woman doesn't, still the man is expected to pay child support?
Why is there protection and then you still decided? Yeah, why is there protection and other means all the game to make sure that you don't have a kid and you still ended up shooting the shot?
I'll get there in a moment.
All right,
And then
I'm
and
waiting.
then and then again, when the man doesn't want the abortion, the female can decide whether to have the abortion or not. Whatever the case, all the decisions that are being made are against the man. Then again, since we're all being religious here, first of all, you shouldn't be sleeping with someone if
No,
you're
I'm not being religious. Cry. I'm taking my
no,
Christianity
no.
out of this.
This not personally to you, but I mean, this is to the arguments which are
Okay.
usually being made.
Okay.
Um, since we're, I mean, most of us are religious, so you shouldn't be sleeping with someone if
Okay.
you're not planning on, if you're not even married, if you're
Hmm.
not planning on having kids. And then again, when it comes to abortion, also there's a lot of negative effects that come with it,
Effects that comes with it.
emotionally, bodily. We spoke about being Christians here, or being Muslim. Why is it
Hmm.
that in all things we are able to trust in God, but when it comes to she might lose her life or whatever, we in that sense we're not able to put our trust in God that God is going to turn the situation around. I mean, if we are going to choose the God or the religious route, we have to stay consistent on that route. And then also, I personally disagree with abortion because in my family line there was a case of rape. So if the person decided to commit an abortion, I wouldn't be here today. So for me, I definitely disagree with it. I definitely disagree with it, and I think that if you're not ready to have a child, first of all, I'm Christian, and you shouldn't be sleeping around before marriage. But if you do decide to do that, I feel like you should be using protection. And if you
Yes.
don't, if you decide not to use protection, I believe that all the consequences that come with it, you should carry them like a man or like a woman.
Yeah.
And I believe that raising the kid is part of it, and abortion shouldn't be a solution. If you decide to have, if you do get pregnant, I believe that you can give it up for adoption or whatever. There's other less how do you call it, less uh ways to go to, yeah, to go about it.
I mean, I agree to a point, but at the same time, it's a 50-50. Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that?
but he still didn't answer the question, though.
Yeah.
The question was, the question was, is the man supposed to be
He said that
to have a say?
in a relationship, a woman's influence is greater than a man's about abortion.
Yeah. So yeah, he didn't talk a lot about the man's, the woman's
I mean, in
part.
today's society, they've made it in such a way that the woman's influence is greater because, like I said, whatever the case may be, she can decide to have an abortion where the man doesn't agree, and she will not face any legal consequences or
Yeah.
whatever. If she does decide to keep the child, still the man has to pay child support. So in whatever the case, the man is a loser.
I have a question. I saw this one story where this husband and wife, right? And they were, doing family planning, and the husband said, "Listen,
One
right now,
1 minute 45 seconds.
Yes.
financially, I'm not in a good place at the moment, and
Okay.
so we should put off having kids at the moment." So, but then she kept on getting pressured by her mother-in-law and then her own mother, and that they need to have a kid. And he was saying that, I really can't have kids right now. Things ain't really well in the position for me to have kids. So one day, she was able to trick him into make him believe that she was on the pill, and yeah, he got her pregnant, and now the decision fell on her, and he was like trying to tell her like, yes, we can't have kids right now, and so in that situation, does it still mean that the guy doesn't have a say even when they're husband and wife, and he's still saying like, no, I do not want to have kids right now, and she's going ahead to do something that would jeopardize their future? Is that still something that we should be okay with,
No,
or?
I feel like the wife in this case, what she did was very foul. But well, I'm not in their
Find the
marriage, so
penalty.
I can't really talk much about it. But I don't understand
Okay.
why. I, I don't understand.
I actually have a very interesting story too, where they all agreed to have like birth control, and like because they didn't want to have kids anymore. They already had three, and just less than 4 months out of nowhere, I don't know if the devil was working, or I don't know. She just got pregnant,
Someone was
and
working.
yeah, and then they actually went to like the hospital to check up on why it failed, and apparently however they put like they put it in her arm fell off from the right vein or whatever. So with that situation too,
Yeah.
how's it gonna feel like who, yeah,
Yeah,
the
I don't know
lady truly doesn't want it. She's a hard time Christian, pretty much. Like she's just right, like he opens the gate for Jesus. So with such a person, how do you think they'll go about it?
In such a case, I
If
believe
you
that.
open the gate
I,
for Jesus, you
You gotta open the
there's no
gate for
other
your
way to go
account.
about it.
You gotta open the gates for
If
your
you open the
account,
gate for
bro.
Jesus, there's no other way to go about it. It's
Yeah,
not even going to be a
Uh,
question.
you're gonna have to have that kid, man. You're gonna have to have that
It's not
kid.
even a question for you to ask.
yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's as
But
hard as it is going to
the
be.
funny thing is,
my,
religion has really played a huge influence on certain decisions that most people make in life.
but
Which,
my thing is not even with the religion aspect. I was talking about with the story. Like, doesn't the guy have a say
no,
in?
he has to say, because this
So,
is where the lady actually finessed whatever was
so this
happening.
one,
She
does he have
pretended.
more say than the woman, or does
Oh
the?
yes, yes, she has to say, because there was no agreement. The agreement was that this is what we needed to do, and if you
Yeah,
didn't agree, you should have voiced out rather than telling me you acknowledge and then
and tricking me.
pretending to take the pills, which you are not, and all of a sudden, boom, you're pregnant. And
Yeah,
then
but
we go and then we realize that there's nothing in your system. Nah, for sure, it's a
yeah,
big red flag.
but let's be real. Theoretically, he has a say. Practically, he doesn't have anything to say because what is he going to do if she decides
that's
not to have
true.
an abortion? What is he going to
That's
do? Is he going to
that's
punch? Is he
exactly.
going to
That's
No,
punch?
no, it's yeah, that for sure. At the end, she's still gonna make
she's gonna
the
do it.
last decision, right?
That's true.
Unless they
However,
sign papers before that,
yes,
if you don't take it
that's why
and
they
you
said
get
prenup
pregnant,
is
it is well.
important. You sign a prenup that makes sure that you don't abort baby without my consent.
Goodness gracious.
Hey,
You will be surprised. You will be surprised it's in someone's prenup. We are 8 billion people in the world. For sure, someone should have it.
I
Bro,
honestly,
still,
there's a prenup that this guy wrote that if his woman gains weight and they divorce, she strikes down. So basically, he goes that if they have divorced, she's gonna get an alimony of 70K. But if she gains weight during this marriage and they divorce, depending on how much weight she gained from the time that they signed those papers to
Oh
when they
Jesus
divorce, they
Christ!
will so they will strike down that amount from that 70K. So for every 10 pound, she loses 10K from that 70K that she's bound to get if
Hey,
they were to divorce. And yeah, there's enough like
them forever.
I was just gonna say, I don't know where Derek, I don't know where you get your stories, man.
I know, bro.
Yo,
The sources are
you
fake.
never had any story that's like all of them are like, whoa, what?
I got you. I got you. You know what? I'll show y'all right now. Hold on.
No, I'm not
There we
doubting you. I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying, like, it's crazy where you get them from.
go.
And it's even crazier that you have it on speed down.
Which was enforceable, had a provision that said that for every 10 pounds the wife gained in the marriage, she would lose $10,000 a month in alimony.
10 pounds of weight.
Yes. Yes. So it was a very wealthy man who was marrying a very attractive woman. But he was very concerned that she was going to become less attractive and he was going to become more wealthy. So his solution to this was in the prenuptial agreement. He wanted a clause that said she would get, if they divorced, she was going to get like $70,000 a month for alimony. But for every 10 pounds she gained from the date of marriage, she would forfeit 10,000 a month worth of alimony. And it was designed to sort of create an incentive that she would remain thin.
This is bizarre.
So that story, someone sent it to me today, and then we just happened to talk about it. I don't just go looking for these stories.
I mean, it can be an interesting topic. I want to really deep dive into it and
For
see
another day.
how. Yeah.
But
Very,
it looks like
very creative. But
Yeah.
Thank you. But, yeah. But it looks like with this last question, we all look like you have a lot to say, but I don't want to take too much time off your hands. I know you're busy too. But I want to say this was a really huge success. I enjoyed the conversations we had, the different opinions.
Okay, thank you all for showing up. I believe this was a very interesting session. I really had a great understanding. I agree with Sam. I disagree with Sam. Some too were a little overwhelming, but I just have to, shut up and just, take it in. But again, I'll be happy to join anytime possible. Yeah, thanks for helping me here to see all these matured and well dedicated guys around the world making good decisions in the world. So yeah, I salute you all.
Yeah, this was awesome. I really enjoyed myself. It's a really good time away from studying, honestly. Um, so I'm glad I learned a lot from everybody's opinions, and hopefully, it can continue to grow. Like we have talked about, like everything that we said. This is our opinion. This is what we think. We are not the rule. We are not the book for anything. We're just sharing what we believe and what we think. And we are still growing. We are still learning. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
yeah, thank you so much for the African Wise Fools podcast. Shout out for the good work and always, bringing great conversations and bringing a wonderful panel to indulge in it, and especially this panel,
He's
very
talking
very
about
very.
himself.
Who asked you, DK? You see who asked you?
He said wonderful panel. He's talking about himself.
From all over the globe, Europe, you know, Caribbeans, and the US, of course. But no, and Europe, yeah. But yeah, this is great. And like we said before, okay, now personally, I will say this. If I misspoke in this podcast or anything,
Bro, listen, I'll do you all a favor. I'm gonna edit it, right? And then send it back to you, and then you can watch it as an
no, no,
outsider. And then
no.
if you think that there's something that's gonna be a problem, you tell me, and then I'll remove it from there.
Here's the
That
thing.
way,
Here's the
you
thing.
have your peace of mind.
Here's the thing. I would not know what others are gonna have an issue with.
Until you find your phone blowing because you're going viral.
So, and some people are married already. Some of us are not. So we don't want to.
You know what?
Yo,
While you're
you
talking,
said a lot of knows. I don't know which one you know. Which one
while
you
you're
know?
talking now, I don't want to even remove anything. I think I'm gonna keep everything. All right, brother Dimon. All right, brother Dimon. Last statement.
Oh, nah, I just enjoyed this, man. Thank you guys for a great time.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on the show once again. I enjoyed the chats. Nice to meet you all again. Um, of course, most of these are opinions, and they come forth from the way we grew up. But then again, I want to add that the location where you grew up and the generation where you grew up in has a huge impact on your view of life. So
Yo, there's a lot of
maybe,
hero energy, bro. Like the way you
bro,
were
I'm not.
talking during that feminist question, the way everyone was like weirdly moving. I was like, yo, what?
Bro, I'm not a Fiora.
Mountains are moving right now.
Yeah, Charlie.
Bro, there's no fear or energy. I have these
Alright,
conversations. Well, I have
alright.
these conversations all the time, and I'm always behind
But this
things.
time I'm posting it for people to see who don't know you though. You
Oh
cool
yeah.
with it?
You can even put
Alright,
me on Instagram. Doesn't matter.
okay, okay,
I think
alright.
that one thing I want to say is that
Yes,
there's
brother.
difference between married and single life. So we all gonna have different opinions, perspective. I think I once thought like a single person, but being in marriage, tomorrow is actually my 3 years, and
Wow.
yes, it's it has taught me a lot. It has taught me a
3 years
lot
doing
in
it.
life. Yeah, it has taught me a lot in life that I still stay on my stance, whatever that I say, because this is more of an experience versus just a thoughtful process or like just an opinion. This is an experience and from an experience
Experience.
that I have shared wholeheartedly, unfiltered, because of what I have seen, what I used to think about, what it is now versus what it was before. So, yeah.
Wonderful. The one nicely done. You be able to cover up for DK, Darren, and Ali. I see what you did there, man. Always looking out for that, like a
Man
big
said I
brother.
shared my
Yes,
testimony, and
sir.
that's on point.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, thank you all very much for
Thank
your
you,
time.
guys.